Recording in progress.
It's funny that it says that now because before it definitely didn't.
Okay, I guess I'll just start. So, can you just tell me about any of like your experiences in dance dealing with like body image issues, mental health, or like even from a teacher aspect of it as well?
Yeah, I think growing up, I was always like really aware of like my weight, my body image, even from a really young age. When I was like 5 and 6 years old, I remember just always being in front of the mirror, and being in like tight clothes and all of that. And so I'd be more aware of like my hips or whatever. And I think that, you're so focused on looking at yourself in the mirror and thinking about, like, do I have the proper alignment? Am I technically doing things right? But then you're also, I think it transfers over into the way that you see yourself. Because you're constantly like correcting all of those little things and paying more attention than you probably would otherwise. So I think just kind of having that mentality of always trying to like fix the things that are a little bit off, it's just it kind of sticks with you with dance. And I think, things have definitely changed. When I was younger, it took more of a toll on my mental health, just kind of having to focus on so many things and not really having a good way to kind of process a lot of that. And I think back then people didn't really focus on mental health the way that they do now. And so, it's just kind of when you're at that young age, you're just kind of expected to do certain things and look a certain way. And I think now that mental health has kind of evolved, we kind of look at those things a little bit differently. So I'm excited to see how things continue to change in the future. But when I was younger, it was definitely a lot harder than it is, I think, now for people in this generation.
And you actually answered like two of my questions with them.
Well, there you go. Gonna knock them all out at once.
How important do you think mental health is in dance, and how did you personally cope with it?
I think it's really important, not only in dance, but just kind of in every aspect of our lives, because it's dance isn't easy because it's a physical and a mental thing. And so, you work so hard and you put your body through a lot of things just to be judged by other dancers, dance teachers, your friends, your family, all of that. And it can be really tough. And I think there's a lot of shame when it comes to kind of like your body, and even, technically in dance, there's a lot of you're always being judged. You feel like people are always watching you. And so I think that can be tough to deal with, especially at a young age. But I think with the onset of the pandemic and everything, kind of this last few years, people have really focused on mental health and the fact that body image isn't, the way that you view yourself is you should view yourself with self-love and not just constantly thinking like, I have to fix everything, I have to perfect everything. So I think that's kind of changed a lot, but that mental health aspect is really, really important. Without that, it gets really, really hard. And I think you can kind of end up in a really dark place. And, I think as far as learning how to cope, that's something, it can be hard when you're young because you don't really have those coping skills that you need. And I think back when I was younger, it just wasn't a focus. People didn't really understand mental health like they do now. And so there weren't a lot of resources. You couldn't really talk to anyone about it. I mean, you could to an extent, but there wasn't really anyone there to help you through it, or they didn't really know what to say or how to fix it. It was just kind of like, well, that's how it is. You just have to kind of learn how to deal with it. Now that I think it's such a big priority when it comes to mental health, it just, you have to figure out how to develop healthy coping mechanisms just in general in your life, and then you have to learn how to carry those over into dance, because I think that really it's important in every aspect of your life. So definitely the healthy coping mechanisms are the biggest thing.
Do you think with like the rise of social media right now that it's almost harder for kids to compare themselves, or do you think it's easier, kind of like you said, with the whole mental health aspect?
I think social media has changed a lot of things. It's opened a lot of doors because there are people who have careers just based off of, posting dances on social media. And in that way, it's cool. And it's nice because, again, during the pandemic, people couldn't go to classes. It was all online, it was virtual. And that was something that wasn't available to us 15, 20 years ago. So in that aspect, it's been really good to have social media. But at the same time, I think that it's changed our perception of dance because it almost feels like everything has to be so polished and perfect all the time. It's not like back when we were younger, we could just take classes and we can enjoy it. And the people in the class were there and they were, kind of watching you, but it wasn't like everyone could see what you were doing. And now it's like, oh, you take a class, someone's recording it and they're going to post it to social media. So it's like always you're constantly showing like, here's what I'm doing. It feels like you kind of always have to be perfect. So I think that has definitely changed a lot. I think it's made dance more accessible to people, but it's also made it more of almost like I don't know, it's kind of taken a little bit of like the artistry out of it and the enjoyment out of it, because it's just that constant feeling of you have to be perfect.
So as a teacher, did you ever feel responsible if any of your kids faced any of these issues, like if they came to you?
Yeah, I did. I definitely felt a big responsibility when it comes to teaching. I really wanted to make mental health a focal point because I knew that it was something that I had always kind of struggled with. And I didn't want my class to be a place where kids were being, yelled at for whatever. I wanted it to be a safe space for them to really be able to grow and to learn and kind of focus on the mental health side of things. And so I always wanted to have that safe space for students. And I think, even students who maybe didn't have that in another class, I wanted to be able to have that for them when they were in my class to kind of learn, how do I cope with this in a healthy way? Or I always wanted them to feel like they could come to me and talk to me about those kinds of things that were going on. Because I'd gone through it too. I didn't really have a lot of help with it. And so I definitely wanted to be there to offer any help that I could.
Do you have any advice for young dancers when it comes to body image issues?
Yeah, I think when it comes to young dancers, I mean, you just have to, it's a hard thing. It really, no one really prepares you for it. And I think if people aren't dancers, they don't fully understand it in that capacity, because it's very, there are so many aspects that you're focusing on. It's the way you look, the way your technique is, just every little aspect. So I think when you're young, the biggest thing is to just really kind of find self-confidence and figure out, don't constantly let other people's perception of you or their judgment of you affect how you feel about yourself. You just really have to kind of find that within yourself, and it can be really hard and it's not always easy. But at the same time, I think sometimes when you go through those things, it kind of teaches you how to be better. And it also gives you the opportunity to teach other people, because you've been in that place of where, it was kind of a struggle. And so, I mean, it's hard, but I think the biggest thing is just kind of hang in there, and you'll, as long as you're making it a priority to focus on, kind of working through some of those things and focusing on having a healthy body image, then I think you'll definitely get there.
So we both danced with males. How do you think like their side of the spectrum is like compared to us?
I think it's definitely different because guys were kind of rare in dance. There weren't many of them, and when there were, there was it was almost like I don't all the focus went to them. If it was a dance or something, you'd always watch the one guy or however many guys, because they were just different, and the way that they dance is different, and their strengths and things are different. And I think it can be hard for them because they do have such a focus on, it's just that one person in that dance. And I'm sure, they face different struggles because there's a lot of, in dance, I think a lot of dancers are really supportive of male dancers. But outside of dance, I think a lot of people kind of look at male dancers and they are more critical, or, they don't understand it, or they're more judgmental. And I think that's when it can get really hard, is kind of the outside world can be really cruel, whenever guys are dancing. And so I think they definitely have a very different set of issues than we do when it comes to mental health and, just the way that they're perceived. But I think the good thing is that for the most part, they do have that dance community that's really kind of there to support them and be there for them.
Nice. I really like the way you put that.
Thank you.
Basically, my last question is long term, would you say that dance helps with these issues that we have been talking about, or do you think it hinders?
I think it can definitely do both. It just, it teaches you confidence and dedication and hard work, and a lot of other important things. And I don't think I would be the person that I am today without dance. It's shaped who I am completely. even in college and my career and all of that, I constantly go back to the things that I learned in dance that really kind of taught me the discipline and how to work hard and how to find, I guess, like the meaning in things, um, which I don't know if I would have had otherwise. But at the same time, I think that the hardest thing coming from the dance world is kind of the body image side of things. Um, I was a lot more self-aware, I think, than I probably would have been. And I also wonder, I think kids probably nowadays they go through that with social media, just in general, regardless of what they're doing. But I think we really experienced that in dance back when I was younger. And so I think that body image side of things has definitely been harder to deal with. But I think, I'm still a huge advocate for dance. I think that it is such a great experience for people, as long as they have that kind of healthy mental side of things. They can really kind of work on their mental health. It teaches you so much about yourself and how to interact with people. And I think that we've really kind of changed the narrative of dance and body image. And I think as long as we kind of continue to do that, and continue to evolve in that kind of way, then we will be in a better place.
Just to have record, how many years did you end up dancing?
Oh, geez. I started when I was 5. I am now 27. So 22, 23 years. I always feel so old when I talk about that. I'm like, Jesus, I've been doing anything for that long. What?
I don't even feel like I've been alive for that long.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I feel like I stopped counting at 21. So anything past that, I'm like, wait a second, how old am I again? Because nothing matters after you turn 21. You're like, I'm legal now, I can drink. Who cares?
That's funny. I get my 20-year certificate next year, and I'm like,
Like, excuse me?
that should not be on record, Brenda. What's
Exactly. It's like, let's not talk about that. Yeah, such a weird thing. I always feel like grandma.
How many years have you been teaching?
I started teaching when I was 15, so 12 years. Again, I feel like an old lady.
Yep. Dance will do that to you, man.
Yep.
Well, I mean, is there anything else you would like to add? I think we covered
most of it. Yeah, I don't know. It's dance is so interesting now versus when we were kids, because like things are just so different. But I think that covers the majority of things. I'm just glad that people are focusing on mental health now, which is something that they definitely didn't do when we were younger, because I remember getting yelled at all the time when I was dancing for everything, and it's like you would never dare to like tell a dance teacher like, hey, you're being really inappropriate and rude, like you couldn't say that, or they would be like, get out of my class, or like, I'm gonna kick you out of my studio or whatever. And now I think people are a lot more aware of those things, and you can actually like stand up and say like, hey, this isn't okay, this shouldn't be happening. Sorry if there's noise in the background, my cat is scratching on scratching post. Anyway, I think it's just I don't know, it's a lot different now, which is good. I hope that it kind of continues to change in that kind of way. I just wish that aerials and all those things weren't required for dance to be on any type of pom squad or anything. I don't know. I think things are a little too perfect now when it comes to dance, which is frustrating, but I mean, I guess everything can't be perfect. You can't have all of it. It's like one thing improves and something else gets worse. So I don't know, but
yeah, like the amount of tricks that are required now. I'm like, what are we, cheerleaders? Or are we gymnastics?
exactly. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And like the pom squad, I remember, I think my freshman year of college was the first time they required aerials. And I was like, excuse me? I did not realize this was going to be a necessity. And I'm really good at falling on my head. So if I do anything where I have to flip. So thank you for that. So yeah, I don't know. That part has changed, which I'm not a big fan of that. But, it'll be interesting to see where things go in another like 20 years. Like now I'm at the age where I'm like, oh, I'm just a teacher, like you guys can do all the things that I can't do, and so I don't perform like I used to, and so I have the excuse of being a little bit more lazy, but I can teach it. I just can't do some of the gymnastic stuff. Yeah, it's like you guys can do it. Good luck.
Yep. Let me press stop real quick.